What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the #1 game development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I am your host, Brandon Pham, and with me, a special guest, Michael Shinde. How you doing, Michael?
How's it going, man? Oh, stop, dude. Look at this setup, bro.
Look at this setup, man. This is how my house, this is how I hang. Well, this is the part of the podcast where I actually ask our guest, which is yourself, to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers out there of who you are, where you've been, where you at, where you heading.
Cool, man. So right now I'm a senior concept artist at Riot Games, working on Valorant, mainly focusing on the environments, so maps and stuff. And then, let's see, prior to that, I was at Turtle Rock for about four years or something like that. Doing the same thing, working on environments and stuff like that for Back 4 Blood, and then like 2 other games that never made it out. And then before that, I was working at outsourcing studio, doing like marketing, art and stuff. And also I teach, so that's why I'm doing that like on the side as well.
Yeah, you're doing 10 things at once. Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring you on here, and there's a lot of history here. I need to use this kind of episode to catch up with you as well. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of drive home is you've always been kind of doing remote before remote was cool. So I remember at Turtle Rock, you were kind of having like an agreement in place where you were able to kind of commute some days and stay home at others. And I think with concept art, it's always been flexible in that way. I know a lot of concept guys that have always, you guys were the first when it comes to freelancing and being able to work this flexible schedule. So it wasn't too surprising that you kind of had like this agreement going on. But do you mind kind of talking about, I remember it was like for personal reasons, but also the advantages of that. The Turtle Rock was kind of flexible when it came to things like that. Do you mind kind of diving deep into the deal? How was it when you first brought it up? Was it alarming? Was it part of the deal when you got hired? When you're like, hey, I need this to kind of work if you want me to come here.
Yeah. So yeah, it was way before COVID or anything like that happened. So like the expectations back then were a little bit different. It was mainly driven by personal stuff, like with family things. But I had to like bring it up before I got hired and make sure that they were definitely okay with it, because obviously like at that time the standard for like most studios was that they wanted to have everybody there like 5 days a week, which is understandable because I think at that time companies were just like hesitant about remote workers. I think even I've heard some stories, I won't say where, of people getting let go when they've brought it up. So when they brought up that they would need to work remote for whatever reason. So I was a little surprised that they were okay with it. And I think part of it was, I think maybe part of it was because of the personal reason that I had. And then maybe some of it was timing, like they needed somebody. So they were like maybe letting it slide. I don't know, but yeah, it was an uncommon thing. But thankfully, like it worked out. And two, I think with what you mentioned with concept art, like being kind of at the forefront of remote, right? It kind of makes sense that they allowed it, I guess, because like with 3D guys, right? Like with what you used to do with the environment stuff, it's like almost, I mean, back then, right? Like way more difficult to pull off, mainly just because you'd have to have the engine on your computer at home and all these other things, and getting that set up for somebody was way more difficult than just having to like put Photoshop on a computer, right? and then whatever 3D program, if they used one, right? And then like Dropbox or whatever, So yeah, it was a weird setup, but thankfully, yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely concerns, right? When it comes to integration, like what 3D or any other disciplines, there's always security issues that comes with that. So either they send you a rig and have it set up to you. It was a very rare thing. I mean, I only saw that before I kind of met you and was working at Turtle Rock. It was very reserved to lead levels where they used to work there because of family or whatever the reason. They had to bounce to a different state, but instead of the company letting them go completely, they kind of worked out this deal. So it was one of those things, to kind of paint a picture before COVID. It was one of those things where it existed, but only to a very selected few, very favored.
Yeah.
So that's how we saw you over at the studio, Michael. You were favorited, right? I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This guy can bounce in and out, whatever. But a lot of it too is what you said. I think because of concept art, you guys had very limited necessity for tools that kind of helped with transition. But I will say that Turtle Rock was, was ahead of its time, because they did that for a couple other people, I think, right? Or was it just you? Yeah.
I think they did for a couple of, everybody has like their, I can't speak to everybody's situation, right? But like everybody had their own like reasons why they were allowed to do it. And I think you're right, with the whole seniority thing, where that was more common, right? Like you had to be working. Actually, I think they had this in place while I was there. Like when I got hired, they said that you could, I think, work from home. Maybe I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, like 85% sure, that they had like a policy that said that you could work from home after you had been there for like a year or something like that. But I was able to like kind of skip that line for some other personal reasons. But to be fair, also, while I did do some working from home, I also was getting up at 4 a.m. to leave at 5 to be there at 6. On certain days where I had to leave early because of certain things. So instead of working from home, I would do that schedule, which was brutal.
Yeah, and I think you left one most important part, is like you were talented. I think because you were good, they allowed that. If you were completely trash, right, they wouldn't trust you to kind of do with this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is self-moderation, right? I think a lot of studios now that are struggling with this, you have these middle managers, producers type that are really having a hard time going along with this Zoom call only management, right? And to kind of let you do that at that time was a lot of trust that you are able to deliver, right? So, and I think a lot of studios had a lot of issues with that at the beginning, but are kind of forced into this situation. But you said it wasn't easy, right? You had to do the crazy commute. A lot of it was you were not just because of personal reasons, but you did live far away and you couldn't move any closer to the studio, right? You didn't really have any choice.
I couldn't move any closer. And again, that was tied to like personal stuff. But I mean, dude, the commute was brutal, bro. Like, I think on average, right? Like it was 40 to an hour, and then on days where it was like tremendously bad, it was anywhere from an hour and a half to sometimes 2 hours. I remember I commuted with a coworker once, because she lived in the same city as me, and it took us 2 hours to get to work, and that's with carpool. So I definitely miss the commute sometimes, because with COVID and everything, like you are always at home and you miss the studio vibe. But also I missed going through a billion audiobooks, and podcasts and stuff like that. That's something that I do a lot less now that I don't commute. So that's one thing I miss about it, at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that alone time that I'm sure as a family man you miss.
Yeah, dude.
I gotta go to work, babe. This is not my choice. But I do understand. Obviously, we prefer to be at home. I mean, we always listen to podcasts doing other things, but there is that piece that you do find during commuting. Like, I'm with you, man. I've done the reverse commute. Living in Orange County, I usually go to LA, which is, I think, the normal version of the commute. Not many people go to Orange County unless they work at Blizzard or something, to make that sacrifice, right? But OC, LA to OC in California is the worst.
Terrible. Yeah.
Would drive by 3 accidents every day or something. This one time, I think I told you, right? This one time we were driving, and as we are, super sleepy, super early, and I just drove past a motorcycle in the carpool lane with nobody on it. I was like, where the fuck is the guy?
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah, so he flew somewhere. And I was like, and it was basically months after where I decided, like, I can't do this. I got to ride the train or something. It's too dangerous. It's just a matter of time that you're going to hit someone, right? even though it added 20 minutes. But the reason why I want to illustrate how difficult it was pre-pandemic and why you were at the front lines of this is for that very reason, right? There's a lot of good jobs out there that, unfortunately, a lot of these good jobs are in centralized, like expensive city. It's like in the center of like a very expensive place. So what you see is 40 minutes, 50 minutes out are where actual employees would live, and they have to go into these inner cities or expensive areas to kind of work. And like you said, man, you're saying 2 hours each way sometimes.
Yeah,
That's a lot of time.
4 hours of your day just destroyed,
Nothing.
right? And
Yeah, zombie mode.
for what? Yeah.
So I want to kind of go into the next part where, you know, I think a lot of people are still actually having issues with this. And for me personally, I always thought when it comes to office politics, right, that happens in the office, right? I thought that was it, right? All right. So when people work at home, all this problem would be solved, right? Which was not the case. And there's like 3, 4 reasons to that. But like I would say the first reason would be maybe in part in addition to the office politics, but self-management, right? So I want to kind of hear, you know, your first trial and error of when you were self-managing, and a lot of people now are having a difficult time with that. With, you said, you know, family coming in, barging in whenever they want to, not having your alone time. So creatively, yes, those commute times were terrible, like you were saying, but it was really good to kind of sit there and let things kind of happen, right? Which I feel nowadays I don't really have. You know, I'm trying to just basically occupy my mind, doing
Yeah.
things all the time. So I want to kind of hear like your first stages of that, and now where you feel like your expert level, what the differences are, at least
That's
for
a tough
you.
question. Yeah, like I mean, my career kind of started as a work from home, because like I was working at outsourced studio, and it was a remote outsourced studio too.
Yeah.
So I
Damn,
guess
you go way back
yeah,
then.
like way back, right? Yeah, back in what was it, 2015 is, you know, that when that started, I think. I mean, not way back, right? So
Bro,
at
have
least
you
like a
even
few years.
been in an office? It sounds
I know, right?
you're the
Yeah.
only guy
Have
I
I
know
ever
that's
been?
been like a straight shot all the way
Yeah.
through at home
Yeah,
all the whole
yeah.
time. All right, that's nice.
I, you know, it's funny, like I've only been into the Riot office once to like pick up, once, or actually, you know, like twice to pick
For
up things and
lunch.
drop off stuff. Yeah. I didn't even grab, you know, the sad part, I didn't grab a coffee from the like crazy freaking coffee thing that they have there, and I didn't
Yeah.
grab food. I just
Yeah.
like went in and went out.
Wow.
But but
Spoiled. That's what I call it.
but anyways, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I started as remote, so learning self time management was, I guess, started there, right? And that was, I was definitely like pretty strict on myself about it at the beginning, because I was still trying to figure out how my working process was and how long it would take me to do things. Because when I started at that company, I was still in school. I hadn't graduated yet, so I was
Humble
on
brag.
top of working there. On top of working there, I was still doing like a 4 class load at Academy of Art University.
Damn.
Um,
Yeah.
so I guess you could say, in order to not get fired, I had to
Academy of
learn
Art. You
to.
from the Bay originally?
I'm from Torrance, like South Bay,
Oh,
near,
okay.
Los Angeles, but I went up there, yeah, for school.
To learn. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like in order to not get fired, like I had to make sure like I was able to balance those things to, you know, which was critical, right?
Yeah. It's very good
Especially
training.
since it was like my first intro into the industry. I didn't want to let my boss down, especially since I really wanted to work there at the time. It was actually like the company I was shooting to work for, and I was thankfully like able to get it. Um, and then like with the whole Turtle Rock thing, um, I think at that point I was like pretty good at self managing and like knowing that, you know, if you have an 8 hour workday, I didn't need the full 8 hours to get what I needed done. I could get most of most, if not all of my tasks done within like a 4 hour block if I had it. Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes even less than that, right? Like, I mean, thankfully I haven't worked at a studio where I've had to crunch pretty bad. And most of the times
Yeah.
concept doesn't have to crunch anyways. Very few exceptions, but like there's some studios out there where that happens, but I've been able to avoid it. So like for me, if I can get like a 3 to 4 hour window in my day to purely just like sit down and focus, and that's the only thing that I'm doing, then I'll be okay. And then the rest of the time, it's either like meetings, lunch, like lunch, and I'm sure like you remember, right, with Turtle Rock, lunch was anywhere from like an hour to hour and a half, maybe,
Brainstorming.
yeah, dude, we're brainstorming. Yeah, we're out there, getting work done. They just don't know it.
Yep.
So yeah, and then with where I'm at now, like I started as a remote employee at Riot, so again following the same trend, and that the same thing with Turtle Rock, right? That mindset has still just carried over. I just have gotten better at uh, managing it, I guess. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think just as you start to know yourself better as an artist, you realize like how long it's going to take you to do things, and as long as you have the mental discipline to make sure that you don't slack off, you should be fine, I guess.
All right.
Everybody's
Well,
different.
I know everyone is different, and I kind of want to ask you on that. So, you've been kind of in the game of remote working for a long time. Are you seeing like similar mistakes that colleagues are making that you made at the beginning? Are you seeing inefficiencies now that managers are remote? Like, what I would love to hear your perspective since you've been doing this for a while and you had it, both ways where you had managers in the office and telling you what to do, but now they're remote. Do you see, every studio is different, but at least in your
Yeah.
experience, what have you been able
uh
to observe?
well, I I think the position I'm in now, because I'm like a senior concept artist, my and this is also like a testament to the manager, that I have. So he's very good about trusting his team and making sure that he's going to hire people that he believes can do the work without him having to be on them all the time.
Yeah.
So I guess that's just having that's like what a good manager would look like. Someone who hires trustworthy people that are going to be able to manage themselves
Yeah.
and just kind of nudge them if they need it, right? But I think I have I guess like in the office, I was the same way where I wanted to be the type of artist that was like I didn't like being managed per se, like having somebody over my shoulder. I think I actually work worse when somebody is constantly trying to
Agree.
uh yeah, like look over me and like micromanage. Uh and I would say at Turtle Rock, at least in studio, they were the opposite of that, or they they were like very kind of hands off, I think, in some regards, at least for
Mhm.
environments, right? I
Mhm.
know some of the character stuff, like they were very hands on because they were like very passionate about characters, but for maps, on all, I think in all 3 games that I worked on there, maps was pretty chill in terms of manager style and producers and stuff, like especially for concept. I've never felt super pressured and stuff. um, and then as that transitioned into remote work, uh I mean, again, that was like at the beginning of the pandemic and everybody was trying to figure stuff out. um but I don't feel like the management style changed too much. If anything, it just made it more difficult because of having to do the Zoom stuff, which I can't, that was an adjustment for everybody, so I can't necessarily say it was only because the managers or whatever. When everybody's trying to adjust to this new like world that you're living in, there's an expectation that there's going to be some growing pains in all departments.
Yeah. Well, what are your impressions in? Because that's quite new, right? Did the amount of meetings for you increase when you had officers, managers in the office versus now where everyone's kind of remote?
uh, Meetings increased. Let me try and think back. Yeah, probably. But I I think when you're working at a studio and you have meetings, I didn't mind that, because it was a chance to like to get everybody on the team together, and it's a meeting, right? But like you're
Yeah.
also like it's game dev, it's like it's fun. it's not like you're going, at least most of the time. There's some meetings that are freaking boring, dude. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it probably increased. I don't know, mainly because it's just communication things. You can't just go walk up to somebody's desk. I've been at Riot for a sec now, and I kind of forget Turtle Rock stuff sometimes, but I feel like
Maybe for good
it's
reasons.
I mean, sometimes. I mean, no, dude. Like,
You
the
had
Turtle
fun.
Rock
We
has
had fun.
its
Yeah.
quirks, for sure. But I think overall, like, my impression of Turtle Rock was
A good
good, and
time.
a lot of that is like, you and the whole crew and stuff like that. People make the studio.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of, like, if you work with dope people, then no matter the studio, you'll probably enjoy your time there
Yeah, the studio
significantly more.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah, than if you were working on, like, your dream project, but you weren't, like, connecting with anybody on the team or whatever. I'd much prefer the opposite, like, any
Yeah.
day.
Well, I mean, you're a lot wiser than I was starting
I
in
mean,
this.
it wasn't always like that, like,
Yeah.
when I was at 1Pixel, I was still in that mindset for sure. But then I'll be honest, like, I never thought, like, oh, hey, I really want to work at Turtle Rock, and that's nothing against them. It was just, when you're young and you're
Your
getting into
sights
the
are really
industry,
high. Yeah.
yeah, your sights are like, I want to work at Blizzard, I want to work at Riot, Naughty Dog, all these, like, huge names at the time that were doing all these groundbreaking stuff, right? And Turtle Rock is, like, a relatively small studio, but I got there, and you meet, like, all of these people that, in some cases, right, they're going to be your friends for your entire life, and that was what happened to me. And yeah, so, like, again, I can't be a bigger proponent for that type of, I guess, path, if you want to
Yeah.
call it that.
Well, I would say this, despite my experience of good or bad, I've always, like you said, met some good people at every single place I've been at, and I think that is the takeaway. Um, at that point when I was at Turtle Rock, I went the opposite. I started AAA all the way through to then, and wanted something different and wanted something smaller, and so I went to Turtle Rock.
Yeah.
And I met you guys, which made it super fun. And there were a lot of things that Turtle Rock did that was awesome. In terms of the perks and everything, it was great. And it was in Orange County, which is my hometown, or home county. That's where I spent most of my time growing up. So I wanted to be near here. There's not a lot of places here. Even today, I know Obsidian is still around. They got bought by Microsoft, so that's a little point up. And the people who made that VR game is around, and they got bought by
Yeah, the Lone
Oculus.
Echo Studio. Yeah.
Lone Echo,
Mhm.
that's a little up. And then there's Blizzard, of course, and then there's Turtle Rock. There's not a lot, and then Amazon
And
Studio.
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to
Yeah.
count them,
So it sounds like a lot, right? But yeah,
it's
it
not
depends on, like, what
much.
you want to choose from. I don't, like, to be honest, the choices that you listed off, I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I would love to kind of hear your thoughts. You've been obviously you're at a great place right now. You're pretty happy there. It's one of your dream studio, I'm guessing, through college. Um, what has your view changed in terms of what you look for, right, in studios now? Besides, I mean, it sounds like you guys have it all over at Riot, but let's just say in an alternate universe, what are the things that are most important to you where it definitely needs to hit and other things don't hit? It doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. I mean, I think still, if I had the opportunity to work with, like, a group of people that, I knew I got along with, that would for sure. And the thing is, the longer you work in the industry too, like, the easier that will be to fulfill, because you know more people, right? So that's, like, still pretty big. But I think with Riot, it was kind of like a dream studio, and I actually never thought that I would work here, because I didn't have, like, if you look at my work, none of it really fits Riot's, like, typical aesthetic,
Yeah, yeah,
and the reason why I got it was because I have one or two things in my portfolio that really fit, and I actually, like, specifically catered for applying to Riot.
yeah,
So that, that's how that worked out. But in terms of like what I look for in a studio, I want to work uh, on a game that I'm passionate about, where I enjoy playing it, and that's kind of what I have right now. With Valorant, I really enjoy the art style. I like it's like stylized and semi-realistic at the same time, but I don't do like any photo bashing work. Basically, it's all like drawing and painting and stuff, which is what I really enjoy doing now, because I spent a lot of years doing photo bashing stuff, and I actually have grown to very much dislike that type of work and that
Hmm.
working method. And like there's like a whole bunch of reasons for that too, but I guess like the main one would be uh, I kind of used photo bashing as a crutch at like the beginning of my career in order to significantly level up the way that my work looked. And it worked, right? Like I was able to get jobs and stuff for companies that were looking for that type of work, but it also hindered me in some ways that I maybe didn't realize at the time, where I could have been stronger in designing in line work and not relying on 3D and photos to kind of carry me through in certain cases. Um, so all that to say, I think I've just gotten tired of doing the photo bash stuff because I feel it feels robotic to me.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of these like things that um, I don't like doing anymore, or problems that I had in my work process that I'm still trying to resolve, and I'm trying to make sure I don't use it as a crutch.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I like where I'm at now, because that challenges me like on a daily basis, where I'm doing line work, I'm doing just strictly painting. It's all like design stuff, which is you know a lot more fulfilling, I think, than photo based stuff. So yeah, so when it comes to what I look for in a studio, something that can fulfill that itch for me, that wanting to like actually create, without outside influence and having to spend time on Google all the time.
Yeah.
uh, and then making sure that the team itself, if like even if it's like a new team entirely, right? The team itself is going to be really dope, and I kind of feel that the Valorant Maps team has that same vibe that I was getting from Turtle Rock, where everybody was like really close. It's hard to explain to the people that maybe haven't experienced it before, but when I say like everybody is close, what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's like really really cool if you can get that.
Yeah. It's no backstabbing,
Yeah,
caring for each
yeah.
other's career and work.
Mhm.
It sounds like one of those things that is easily obtainable, but once you get into like a groove of people that you want to actually hang out with outside of work, I don't think I got there with you guys. I don't think I hung out with you guys outside of work, but I know a lot of you guys did. I was almost there, right? But
Well, I mean, you're a busy guy, dude. You're a
yeah,
busy guy. But
yeah.
yeah, I think we played basketball. Like we would invite you to basketball, dude. I mean, come on
Yeah,
now.
we play ball and all that stuff. Uh, and I agree with you. Like, well, I kind of want to touch on this topic a bit. The photo bashing stuff. It seems like every concept artist I talk to don't like it, but it's so widely used. Maybe because it's efficient. But is there ever a way to kind of get rid of that? Or, I mean, is it just too advantageous where art directors just love that shit? Because
I
every
mean,
concept artist
yeah.
I talk to never likes that process. Never.
I think that if anything, it's just getting easier to do now.
Yeah.
Uh, and the techniques are just getting more crafty, where it's looking better, and it doesn't take as much time, and in some cases, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna go away. And art directors do fucking love it. Sorry, I'm not allowed to cuss, but yeah.
You can cuss.
Um,
Fuck yeah, you can.
Tight. Yeah, art directors, in most cases they like it, unless you're at a studio where they definitely don't do that type of stuff. But like I said, it's one of those processes where it's it's much easier to learn how to photo bash than it is to learn how to paint uh, well.
Yeah.
Because photo bashing, you're just taking something and altering it, but it's already there. It's already like a thing that exists, right? So, um, it's much easier to teach somebody how to attach like a bunch of adjustment layers to an image that you cut out and paste it in there, than to teach somebody like how to render like a highlight that's warm and then the shadows are cool on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And why it should be that way, and et cetera, right? Because at that point you're creating something from scratch rather than something that's already halfway or 3/4 of the way done. And yeah, I think it's a shame that it's that way because you know, I think just I prefer the painted stuff now, but that's all just personal opinion. But again, I don't think it's going to go away. It's just going to get faster and faster, especially with tools that are coming out and things like
NVIDIA.
yeah, Nvidia's all their AI crap that they're doing that's making it crazy too. And then also too with Epic's material library that they have for free now.
Yeah.
That stuff is just, and then you combine that with things like Blender, which is also free. So it's like, it's very, very easy to make high quality photorealistic work for minimal effort. But the problem with that is a lot of students, they don't learn how to properly design something because they think that since everything is at their fingertips already, you can kind of skip that process. And I've seen that a lot in the students that I've taught, where you can tell that they've watched like the tutorial videos and stuff on how to do this specific process, but then they are missing the composition and the lighting fundamentals and design principles and stuff like that make your photo bashed image read well. And that's a shame, because I went through that a bit at the beginning of my career and in school and stuff. And if I could go back and make sure that I fixed those things at the beginning, I would definitely be more well off. So I'm trying to make sure that my students don't make those same mistakes because they can be hard to unravel once they're set in place.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think all disciplines are kind of going through a similar cycle where these tools are getting so much stronger. It is really up to the creative to take it up the notch, right? Where the default is already good, but to make it great, you basically have to go back to fundamentals. All these things that we learn in these books that we ignore, like bring all that knowledge, and the tool is just a tool set, right? Yeah, like even with 3D art, it's the same thing, man. There's characters. I always make fun of characters because they are kind of like the glory prop, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of character artists don't like hearing that, but it's a glorified prop. But like, there's just
the
like
most insulting thing you can say.
It's the most insulting. Oh, bring it on, right?
Yeah.
So both disciplines respect each other, but it's a glorified prop. But like, we have meta humans. We're having all these, they're going through a mocap animation phase right now where you can basically build a character kind of like those World Wrestling Federation games, right? You make your own avatar, which is a very smart way of doing it. It won't cover everything, but if that tool continues to develop, it becomes a very accessible thing where you can adjust, make it look like a certain way, and then it's auto-rigged and has a full set of animation already set. Yeah, but that's a huge time saver where, like you say, with photobashing is very approachable for me. I don't draw, right? But I feel like I can get there with it. But it is completely boring to you guys, but at the same time, I don't have the fundamentals that you guys have, or I would say a conceptual visual library that you guys have to rely on to make the composition interesting and draw from, right? I still got to do Google search and stuff. So there's a lot of steps that is being cut out, and I think it becomes a problem later down in line when we're becoming more senior and lead level, and we have to come up with something out of nothing, right? And you build a career building something out of something else. It's very hard to kind of suddenly become that artist and be original, right? And I think that's kind of what you're saying, that if you rely on these tools too much to kind of make the final art look good for now, when it becomes time to step up, where, to be fair, most people don't have that opportunity to kind of make something and call the shot on it, right? Most people are going to be, you know, assembly line workers, right? Which is fine,
Like, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But like it is one of the reasons why that when you do move up the ladder in the industry, that there's only one pinnacle lead, right? One pinnacle art director, and like a lot of other people, right?
Mhm.
But I do see a similar thing happening in all disciplines, even environment art. Man, they are coming out with AI driven world building, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
Mega
I mean, yeah.
scans, props or being
Mhm.
picture photographed and then
Yeah, I mean
put in.
that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? Like mega scans is your guys' photo bashing, right?
Yep.
Essentially. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, and then again that leaks into concept art because we're using the same stuff. But yeah, I mean, if you don't know how to put a scene together and make it pleasing, you know, you can have all these great scans and stuff and textures, but it's just still going to be like a blobby mess or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, yeah, I like going back to the whole like fundamentals thing. Like I've been uh I'm in the middle of designing a 15-week course for the school that I teach at, and the first couple of weeks are going back to going back to fundamental stuff where it's uh it's doing like ellipses and cubes and perspective and you know how to plot an ellipse on like a slope and things like that and um a lot of things that I learned back in the day, but definitely just forgot how to do because I never had to really use it in my everyday work, right? Because with Photoshop, there's a bunch of different tools that you can use to kind of fake it or whatever. But it's actually been really enjoyable to kind of pick up the books that I have in my art book library and
Dusting
look
them
back
off.
through them. Yeah, yeah, it does go like this, like dusting off the freaking the centuries worth of dust. You know, but yeah, it's actually been really enjoyable to go back and see those and just do these little exercises. But I'm recording myself do these exercises and trying to describe like how I'm doing it. So that's been really fun. And I think if students can find joy in that also, you know, it would be super beneficial for them. But sometimes it's just boring, right?
Yeah.
People think it's
Yeah. I
boring. I
mean,
used to think it
yeah.
was boring until I
And they
came
still
back to
think
it
it's
several
boring.
years.
Your students like, why is he not showing us photo badge? I want to make cool shit. I
It's
mean,
like I'll
that's
get to
just
that. I'll get to that in week 8. All right, you little shit. Like,
yeah.
slow down.
It's unfortunate, but this cycle repeats. Yeah, I was in those classes too, man, doing color theory and all this bullshit. I was like,
Yeah,
when do I get to the 3D? But now that I'm older, I'm appreciating those fundamentals, and I like, oh man, I wish I paid more attention to design principles, right? And like even topography, which was I thought was bullshit. I was like, oh, now I understand why.
yeah. It'll
you
roll
know,
your eyes as you think back on it.
yeah. So this is one of those things that, yeah, I know the ones that get it obviously were excelling, but I think as a whole, most students kind of ignore that stuff. Which, yeah, we want to do the cool shit, right? I was one of those people. It's like, why am I not learning how to 3D model, man? It's been like one and a half year in. I haven't touched a
Yeah,
3D
yeah.
model program. What the fuck?
Yeah, you usually have this
Uh,
stupid pencil in your hand, bro. Like, what is this?
it's like, why am I drawing this dude? But yeah, I definitely see that happening now. I think it's one of those things that, as funny enough, I think as the industry matures, right now that tools are being so easily accessible and students can make good looking work, right? And then the gap between good and great is like, I feel like incrementally getting smaller because there's so many tools at disposal to kind of make these really fast, that the edge is actually what you're saying, going back to the fundamentals, to make your composition that much better, right?
Yeah.
You just got to ultra zoom. It's like, that's why this is better. It's like, oh, okay, because like the thing with world building and everything that I'm seeing is there's with mega scans you can throw a bunch of art in the scene in the same amount of time before, right? But now I'm like, my eyes are bleeding from too much detail, right? And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
seeing that with a lot of games. It's like too much like going on in this corner right now. It's like you don't need to see that much. So it's
Yeah.
like that subtraction is actually I feel what makes a lot of games come out, because how many zombie games in the apocalyptic world can you see if
Dude,
you see it
so
all?
many, bro. Yeah, and that's also a part of the reason why I got was tired of the photo bashing stuff, and then also too with the realism thing where um like at that time, everybody was trying to chase the like the Last of Us and
Yeah.
Uncharted type like realism or whatever. There's other games
Still.
too, but like
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Still.
still
Yeah.
right. But after a while, it's like I think like the reason why those games look really good is because they knew how to self edit and do
Yeah.
materials that they were very meticulous with the way that they designed their materials and the value groupings and things so that it didn't
Right.
feel super noisy. But then you have a lot of games that just aren't doing that. And
Yeah.
the way they crafted like lighting as well. Um, and for me, I just got a little tired of that type of stuff, which is why like for me, stylized artwork is more appealing now because it's a lot more self editing and design, like color
Simplify.
choices. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like when you do stylized stuff, with realism, you can get away with a little bit more, right? You can kind of fudge some things in terms of like design, but with stylized stuff, if the design is off, it will really show through because you don't have like a bunch of detail to kind of hide
Yeah.
things. That's why things like TF2 and Overwatch and stuff like that they're so successful for their time, because the way that they handled like character silhouettes
Yeah.
and environment designs and things like that, it was so um like I guess you could say simple, right? Deliberate. Everything was deliberate.
Yeah. I think if we I think I've noticed the last year and a half, the most popular games, the AAA games, are leaning towards stylized now more than realism. Of course, there's a lot of realism games, but if you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, I would kind of lean that more towards stylized a bit, right?
Mhm.
Because it is a made-up fantasy world, still based on realisms, but like obviously this concept team had fun with that, right? They've still probably
Yeah.
photobash, not quite there. But I would say this because you guys have to hand draw that shit stylized concept. That's why there is less is more. No one
Yeah.
wants to like
Yeah.
do too much lines. You guys are
Bro, you
like,
come
no, this is better. It's like someone that concept artist
yeah.
were
No,
like
dude, you caught
having
on to us. It's not
yeah.
design principles. We're just lazy, dude.
Yeah. That first concept that was developing arthritis, right? It was like, no, man, this is where
Yeah.
the industry is going. This is where
You
it's
want
at
me to
right
draw
now.
how many wires, bro?
Yeah, I
No
know. How many
way.
houses did I gotta hand draw this shit?
This is a flat wall, dude. That's actually why Valorant's successful. Is we're just a
Yeah.
bunch of lazy concept artists, and we're just making flat walls, dude.
Yeah,
That's the real
well, I mean,
reason.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. Is he the lead that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yam is the lead.
Yeah, I make
Yeah.
fun of Yam all the time because it's like, all right, man, you're just drawing boxes with colors on it. Like, good job.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah,
Everything is just a box, dude. That's it. That's all it is on Valorant. Yeah, just
yeah.
different colored boxes, different shapes, just rectangles all over the place. Yeah.
What I do love, what you guys do is, when you guys were first like coming out with that thing, and I was a huge fan of Counter Strike. Counter Strike was my first person shooter introduced to that genre, right? So when I saw that gameplay that you guys were doing with like your own twists, and then varied designer levels, like you said, like boxy, right? Designers love boxes, right? I thought it was perfect. The way that you were designing it, it was just a great. I love the environment, I love the characters, I love the gameplay. So, for the longest time, I was making fun of Riot of being like a one game studio,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
now, since I don't know what happened, man,
They're like
since then
a
you guys have
lot,
been
dude.
killing it.
Yeah.
Since then,
Mhm.
Valorant being like I think the second announced game or third or something, that was killing it. But I do see that in what you guys are doing that is leading the industry. But I believe also because everything is over photo bash for the longest time, that it is starting to look the same, right? And the the irony of people kind of looking at The Last of Us as like the way to do post-apocalyptic, it's kind of becoming very formulaic now in terms of the art direction. It's like, how can I tell from this game to the next?
Yeah.
And I think slowly the industry is finally learning. It's like, we can't do this. It's bad for us because we don't stand out, but for the customers out there, I'm starting to kind of bleed them together and clump that whole game genre together, so it doesn't help me feel attracted to that game, even though I like it.
Yeah.
There was that game. Was it the day before today or something stupid.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, day before today. It's a zombie. It's supposed to. It's basically the Division with zombies, right?
Oh God. Okay.
So the
Yeah.
so the premise is interesting because I never played the Division for clunky reasons, but like yeah, I would love to hang out in a zombie infested world. But I mean, first of all, the name is stupid. Day before today is yesterday, so it's like no one talks like that. And
What the
second of
heck,
all,
dude?
the way it looks, yeah, it was just it was exactly what Last of Us would look like in open world. But I don't think that's enough anymore. If you look at the biggest games the last couple of years during the pandemic, it was Fall Guys, Valorant. What else was there? Well, Fortnite dominated.
Yeah.
And of course you have Warzone, but that's Call of Duty. That's kind of a category of its own. But like there was a lot of games the last 2 years, and that were, I would say, not the norm, right? These games used to not dominate the realistic games,
Yeah.
unless you're Nintendo, right? So I definitely see that trend kind of moving towards, and probably it's you guys complaining all the time. Concept guys who are just like, hey, I can draw. It's like, do you?
Yeah. Do you? Yeah. Sometimes, like, I think I can. You want to know what's crazy, bro? Is back in the day, like when I was doing the outsourcing stuff, and even a little bit at Turtle Rock, there was this process where if you spent a bunch of time like cutting out a photo,
Yeah.
for let's say it's like street objects and stuff, you would open a PSD and you would just place that cutout into the PSD for later use, like instead of having to find another one, right? For like basic objects. But then sometimes, that process started to get to the point where you're cutting out things that were specific. And dude, I've seen concepts where the same thing, like the same object was like in multiple different concepts, or like one or two different concepts, because there was like a group of artists, like a group of concepts, like from outsourcing or whatever, that were using the same like cutout PSD, like alpha stuff. They would just like collect a library of them that the entire team would use. So then you start seeing repeated objects just all over the place.
Yeah.
Like they would hide it pretty well, right? But in some cases, if you had a good eye, you could tell.
It's like Disney animation.
I know, right? Yeah.
They just
Yeah,
copied rotoscoping.
Yeah, they would just rotoscope the same movie. What was it? That was Jungle Book, right? And Winnie the Pooh or something like that.
Yeah.
Man. So stuff like that, it's crazy, and I don't know. Yeah, you're just like baffled at some of that stuff. Just a little laziness.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that as a trained eye, let's just call them nerds. Concept nerds can catch it, right?
Concept nerds, yeah. but the point being is that leaks into games.
Yeah, like it does.
That will slowly trickle down into the 3D guys.
No, I can definitely see it. Like as a blip, right? You don't notice it. Only like the trained eye can see it. But now that you have mega scans, now that you have metahuman, what you're gonna see the next few years is the same looking characters, the same looking environments, and as a bundle, it starts to devalue the game, the story that you're trying to tell. Whatever game that you're putting out with these same assets, people are going to be distracted by it. It's like I thought I saw this familiar mood in another game I just played, right? And they just turn off, even if the game design is dope, right? But that's the problem with recycling. I mean, it's the number one reason why people hate sequels, right? Or franchise games, right? Now we're sharing assets across multiple games, sharing the same photobashing techniques, right? It does, I think, bring the industry down a notch eventually.
And two, I think that when you have, like you said, with the mega scan stuff, mega scans, metahuman, that's all part of the Unreal library, right? So like if I'm an indie developer, right, and I'm thinking of doing this game or experience or whatever, am I going to go with Unity or should I go with Unreal, which has all these packaged things that I can use? And it starts to just make the industry more and more, I guess, one note, right? Because everybody's using Unreal because it has all these assets that are free to use, and rather than diversity, which I think just in general, right, you like to see.
Yeah, and especially indie, like you said, it's important for you to stand out. And now you're using the same thing as everyone else. It's kind of hard. The edge, we were mentioning, is getting slimmer, and it really does take just enough to kind of stand above everyone else. This is indie and big, man. I'm seeing it both ways. That's why I think the trend the next couple of years is gonna be towards the stylized. I'm already seeing it with a lot of studios where people are not so concerned about hardware and pushing the limit. And I think that's gonna be a game for first party like Microsoft and Sony to kind of keep at it in the realistic space. Um, I anticipate more like Little Big Nightmares, uh,
Yeah.
super hyper real, but in a fantasy gore type of look, and then uh, Horizon Zero Dawn that just came out, something along those lines where it's real but like fantasy real, right? It's not Call of Duty or Last of Us. It's like it can't be that anymore. It's too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's not easy to make those games, but it is too easy to replicate that art style.
Yeah, they just had what was that one game? I haven't played it yet, but Lost Ark, which is supposed to be pretty good. That
Oh
was
yeah,
like
yeah,
kind of that like fantasy, little stylized bit stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah, which did really well, and it was free to play, I think.
yeah.
It's nuts.
So there's a lot of, I think, opportunities. I mean, not to kind of bash on. I mean, it's great. It's a great time to be a game dev. You have a game idea that is doable now from start to finish. Um, but like you said before, you have to find that edge. And fortunately, it's going back to those boring classes in colleges, and kind of reminding
I know.
ourselves. Yeah, kind of reminding ourselves like how exactly this fits into
Well,
my workload. Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. I get excited about doing those little sketches, even though they never get shown or whatever, and they're not exciting to look at, right? It's like, oh, look, dude, I just did this box with rounded
Versus.
corners on it, and I actually plotted out the rounded corners accurately. Like
Yeah.
nobody cares, nobody wants to see that, but I got excited about it, and
Yeah.
actually, you know, I feel like it's making me a better artist in one way or another.
You see how it benefits you. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people have trouble seeing the end result, like your students right now, right? It's like, what? Why are you teaching me
Yeah.
this? I know how to do triangles, son. Uh,
I mean, like, how has the teaching thing been with you? Like, I know you have the school.
yeah. Well, the school is going. I actually had to put that on pause for a little while as I was kind of focusing on other industry. But like you, I was teaching, man, almost as long as I was in the industry. I would say half, at least half of my career was teaching at physical schools at first for like 3 years straight, and then slowly online. And it's this is where I always get jealous of you guys concept wise, right? Uh,
Yeah,
it's a pencil and paper, right? Or in your case, Wacom pen with Photoshop, right? Nothing really
yeah.
changes in terms of technology. 3D, man. If something I just
Changing all the
finished
time.
recording is already outdated, like 2 seconds later, right?
Yep, yep.
So it's one of those things with any technology based education or knowledge. It's very hard to kind of keep everyone up to date. And that's the
Yeah, yeah.
challenge, at least on the teaching side. It's like, oh, this new tool came out, so everything that you learned up to now is not completely useless, right? I think a lot of that knowledge can still go into lower tier, like mobile. Apple Watch didn't go anywhere, but like mobile,
Yeah, yeah.
or even Valorant, right? Valorant has a lot of old school techniques in how you guys build those environments. Very old school techniques. So in that way, stylized games find a lot of these old techniques very useful. Uh,
Yeah.
and I, but it's hard to convince students that, right? Because they're
They
so
want to learn the flashy. Yeah.
Unreal 5, what is the latest and greatest? You're the old guy, I'm the young guy. Especially with Nanite now. Nanite, I
Oh
don't know
yeah, that's
how,
gonna
how
solve everybody's problems, bro. Don't you
yeah,
know?
you just from ZBrush to Unreal. And in some cases, yeah, you can do that and it's amazing. But, you know, not every game's going to be built with that. It's
Yeah,
certainly
yeah.
not mobile. Um, but it's very hard to kind of convince students that it's like, yo, I'm not trying to make NES games, dude. I'm trying to
NES
like,
games. They don't even
get that
they
shit
don't
out
even
of
know
my
what an
face.
NES game
I know,
is,
right?
dude.
It's like, okay, grandpa, like PSP is old to them, right? If I
Yeah.
mentioned PSP, it's
Oh
like,
my
whoa.
God, dude. PSP, yeah. That's
Yeah,
different.
I know. So I think that's always the struggle between students and teacher, at least for me, right? The technology part. Uh,
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of keep them relevant, or at least care about the old stuff as much as the relevant stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, I think it's kind of the same with I mean, we don't have the technology like issue as much, right? I think the biggest thing is just that like saying, oh, hey, with the 3D stuff now, it's not so much Maya and Modo or whatever it is in 3ds Max. The industry standard now is just Blender. Just go download
it's
it. It's
all
free.
Blender. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the thing.
yeah, which is good, right? Because it's free and it's like actually a really good tool, especially for concept.
It
Um,
is good and it is great and it's updated all the
all the
time with the
time.
latest greatest.
Yeah, and like a huge community for add-ons and things like that, which make it even easier to do things in there. Especially if you don't have to make it if you're not looking to make things like production ready, right? You can
Yeah,
model something and it'd be sloppy, and that's perfect for what I do, right?
yeah,
Um, but again, it's like the struggle for on my end is keeping them grounded and saying, hey, like let's not jump there too quick, right?
yeah,
Maybe learn how to draw box. That might help you.
yeah,
Like at least in my experience, it might help you. But what do I know? I'm an old guy.
yeah. We're all getting old. I would
Yeah.
ask you one last thing here. The number one concern that I have, because it is a different world, right? And I do feel this remote thing is best reserved for experience, more seasoned and responsible artists, right? What I feel, and in several ways, a lot of students are coming into this kind of pandemic remote thing, and I don't think that's healthy for their learning to be a part of the work environment and like like I feel I haven't, maybe that's one of the future episodes that I would love to kind of talk about, like new developers coming into this kind of post-COVID world. Well, have you seen any of that? Do you have students that are going into the workforce and basically remote base from start, most likely for the next 3 5 years? And do you see
Uh,
that as healthy, unhealthy? Your thoughts?
yeah, I do. I can think of one student. I had a student named Irie Pan, who's like this amazingly talented artist and great person. And I taught her at Brainstorm, and she's a senior concept artist at Blizzard now. And I'm pretty sure like she did like full remote from out of school into working at Turtle Rock with me, and then to Blizzard. Um, and I think in her case, uh, she didn't suffer from like any like negatives in terms of you know like picking up bad habits from working from home, but she did for sure miss out
Fun stuff.
uh
Yeah.
on like the
The
fun
office.
stuff, yeah, of like being
Yeah.
in the office, right? Because like and I'm really sad that I didn't get to work with her like physically at Turtle Rock, because that would have been like really fun, right? And
Yeah.
as you know, like the Turtle Rock environment and the maps team was like really awesome. So that's a shame, and I do think that overall like it's like a net negative to start your career working from home. um, if the intention is that you're going to be working as a full-time artist in the games industry, right? Like of
Yeah.
course there's like the freelance route and contracting and things like that, and that's a whole different discussion, because
Yeah.
most of the time like there's cases where you do go in, but it's a lot more common, at least in concept, that you could probably just do a full remote. But again, like if you're intending to be a full-time artist, I feel like they're for sure missing out on a lot of things, because um just the whole Slack and Google meetings and stuff like that as a way of interacting with your coworkers on a daily basis, when you're supposed to be face to face, it's just not the same. I just wish that it wasn't that way, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they're fucked. I would add on to that. I would say this, right? Because if I think about, as we're getting more senior leads, and as we go up the ladder, right? Uh, we tend to recommend friends, right? It's a very referral based industry. Um, I don't think about that person that worked really hard at his computer and I never talked to, right? And which is what basically Zoom meetings are, right? You meet people essentially just to talk about, hey, how's your work, blah blah blah, and then you leave, which is what this environment is. All my best connections have always been outside of work. It's like playing basketball with you guys.
Yeah.
Those are the people I recommend because I created connections outside of work or in the workplace, or we're just fucking around in the cubicle, right? And it's not ever really about, wow, he was really good at making art.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was,
yeah. It's like a pet is a little bit, right? But for sure, it's like the cumulative memories of like how they were as a person, right? And
yeah,
like all that stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So I do see that as a potential danger to all these badass artists that are fully remote as they get further along in their careers. Because how often are you going to recommend that type of person, right?
dude.
If you
That's
don't
such
have the
yeah,
memory.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
such a good point, dude. Yeah, I didn't even really think about that because yeah, that's such a good point, man. Because the way, again, I didn't mention this before, but the way that part of the reason why I also got the job at Riot was because DMAC recommended me
Right.
when Yam hit him up about it because he's like, oh hey, DMAC worked with Shinde. Maybe I
Yeah.
should ask DMAC about it. And obviously like me and DMAC were very close and all that stuff. So like, he gave me a good recommendation and stuff. But like I wonder if that would have been different if we never actually met face to face,
Yeah.
for
Of
sure.
course
Like
not.
it's got to be like that.
Yeah,
He would have been like, oh yeah, like it would have been it would have been more of like a vague generalization, I imagine, right?
yeah. If all he had
Yeah.
was your R station to go off of, so yeah, I guess he's good. And try him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the main thing is like when we recommend people, it's their personality, and you just don't get that in this type of environment. Unfortunately, I think that's the biggest downside. This is remote, right? There's a lot of upside, but this is the biggest downside. You just don't have that personality reference from all
Yeah.
these other things that we do in the office in lunchtime, right? You don't have that. I wonder what it's going to be 5 years down the line, how these people actually progress up the ladder, right? Because I think the same people who are recommending or promoting and all this stuff or starting studios together, they're still gonna hang on to the memory before COVID. It's like, oh, I worked with this guy in the office, and I'm the exact same way. There's people that I'm only meeting through online interaction, and it's very hard to kind of like get that same level of joy that I get when I'm working with someone in the office and having all the experience, right? So,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Mhm.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, that is an hour. I want to thank you for sparing your time, hanging
Of course,
out
my
with
dude.
me. I would like to say that this is the part where I shut up, hand over the mic to let the good people direct to you on how to find you and connect with you if they want to.
Cool. Yeah, I am. Let's see. I'm on Twitter at mshinde_art. I don't have an Instagram because I
What?
am a terrible artist. Let's see. Other than that, I just have a Facebook and then Twitter, and I have an art station which you can just type my name in there and find. And then let's see. Other than that, I'm slowly working on putting out a Gumroad video
Nice.
on some keyframe illustration techniques. So be on the lookout for that. Eventually, when I get done with it, I'm like crazy busy right now with all the billions of different things I'm trying to get done for work. So I will try and have it out ASAP. And when I do, I will post on Twitter about it.
All right.
So yeah.
And we will share. All the links in description, as always, will be found on the video links and all that stuff. So at the very